The blue warning Vitra was not like the others. She was born with glowing blue eyes that lit up whenever danger came close. It had saved her life many times, even before she learned how to fight. On her planet, this was rare. Only one in 1,000 had the gift. Her people didn't treat her like a person. They treated her like a living warning light, a tool, a sensor. They gave her a rank, trained her in weapons, and placed her on the front lines of war. But deep inside, Vetra was tired of always being seen as a thing, not a girl, not a warrior, just a signal. When the humans joined the Alliance, she was told to stay away from them. They were too wild, too unpredictable. Her commander said, "Their minds are not like ours. Be careful. Your gift may not work near them." She didn't believe that. Until she met Elias. He was quiet. Almost too quiet. Unlike other humans who talked too much and moved too fast, Elias was calm. He never tried to lead, but somehow everyone followed him. He didn't speak unless he needed to. And when he looked at people, it felt like he could see straight through them. They were both chosen for a crash recovery team. A scout ship had gone down in the border zone, and the crew was missing. Vetra's job was simple: sense danger before it happened. The moment the drop shuttle landed, her eyes began to flicker. There were dangers everywhere: unstable terrain, strange sounds in the fog, and shifting shadows. Her eyes lit up like always, blue, glowing, warning her and the rest. But then Elias walked past her. The glow vanished, just like that. The world still felt dangerous, but her eyes didn't react. She blinked and looked around. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe it was her suit. But when Elias stood near her, the glow was gone. And when he walked away, it came back. She didn't say anything. Not yet. Later that day, during a test drill, she stood in the path of a fake explosion. As the danger approached, her eyes glowed again, bright and strong. Everything was normal. She was working fine. But when Elias appeared behind her to give instructions, the glow faded once more. It was like his presence turned off her instincts. The other team members didn't notice, but Vetra did. She stayed quiet, but she couldn't stop thinking about it. At night, she sat in her quarters, staring into a small mirror. Her eyes were normal, no glow. She tried to trick herself, made fake threats, sharp movements, sudden sounds, but the glow only came when danger was real. Her gift had never failed. But now, near one human, it was silent. She began to watch Elias closely. He wasn't like the others. The rest of the team laughed, shouted, argued. He stayed calm, always watching, always thinking. In one mission, they walked into a ruined facility filled with unstable tech. Vetra's eyes glowed as soon as they entered, until Elias stepped forward. Then, once again, silence. The final moment came during the return flight. An alert went off. One of the engines was overheating. Red lights flashed. Panic spread. People shouted over each other. But not Elias. He walked calmly to the back of the ship, checked the controls, and manually shut down the system. Vetra was standing right next to him. Her heart was racing. The danger was real. But her eyes? No glow at all. When they landed, her hands were shaking. She turned away from the others and whispered to herself, "Why don't you feel like a threat?" She couldn't sleep that night. Her thoughts were stuck. Her eyes had always been right. But now they were silent next to him. What did that mean? Was he the threat she couldn't sense, or something else entirely? Her people believed that blue eyes like hers were a gift from the stars. But some old legend said this gift could be broken. That one day, someone would come whose presence would silence the glow. She always thought those stories were myths, fairy tales told to children. But now, standing near Elias, the stories felt real, and worse. She didn't feel fear near him. She felt calm. That was even more dangerous, because Vetra had lived her whole life trusting her instincts, her glowing eyes, her early warnings. But near this human, everything she believed about danger was changing, and she didn't know why. The human mystery Vetra had always trusted her gift. Her eyes never lied. They glowed blue when danger was near, no matter how small or silent. But since meeting Elias, something deep inside her had started to question everything. Why did her warning light go quiet around him, even in the middle of chaos? She couldn't let it go. She had to know more. From that day on, Vetra began to observe him, quietly, carefully, not like a spy, but like a hunter studying something it didn't understand. She watched how Elias moved through the halls, how machines around him sometimes flickered for a second. Not in a way others would notice, but she did. Lights dimmed briefly. Doors took longer to open. Sensors paused. For just a moment when he passed, it was like the world hesitated around him, like something was trying to adjust. The others on the team treated him with a strange mix of respect and discomfort. They didn't say it out loud, but she noticed how no one ever stood too close, how they avoided eye contact for too long. How? They never questioned him, even when he spoke in that soft, firm voice. They didn't know why they acted that way. But she could see it. They felt uneasy around him, and they didn't know why. One day, during a security drill, the alarm blared, loudly testing their response time. Everyone panicked, ran, grabbed weapons. Her eyes glowed instantly. But as soon as Elias appeared beside her, the light faded like it had never been there. She looked straight at him. Nothing. No fear. No glow. She stepped away. The light returned. She stepped closer. Gone again. She didn't speak. She didn't ask him, not yet. Instead, she ran a private test. In the ship's AI system, she entered a fake simulation. She programmed a training room with different types of threats, moving blades, fire traps, sudden drops, and shock waves. She stood in the middle, watched her eyes light up with every danger. Perfect, sharp, bright blue. Then she added Elias to the simulation. Just him. No threat. No weapon. No movement. Just his presence. The glow faded. Her heart beat faster. Not from fear, but confusion. Was he hiding something? Was his presence blocking her signal? Or was he the reason her gift didn't work anymore? That night, Vetra followed him quietly through the halls. He didn't seem to sleep much. He wandered alone, sometimes staring out of the observation window at the stars. She waited until he was alone in the engineering room. Then she stepped inside and spoke. "Who are you really?" He didn't look surprised. He turned slowly, his eyes calm. "You've been watching me." "I have to," she said. "My eyes don't glow around you. They glow around everyone else, but not you." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the panel and opened a hidden drawer. Inside was a small, old box. He opened it and showed her a strange silver scar on his chest, like a spiral, almost like a brand. "This isn't natural," he said quietly. "I was part of something, a long time ago." Before I knew what it meant, Vetra stared at the scar. It pulsed slightly, like it had its own life. "What did they do to you?" "They changed something in me," Elias said. "Something I can't explain. I was just a boy. Some alien scientists took human children and tested things they didn't fully understand. Most of the children didn't survive, but I did." Vetra felt cold. "Why didn't your people say anything?" "They don't know," he said. "Even I didn't know until your eyes stayed quiet." She took a step closer. "My tribe has legends. Old ones. About a being who walks among us but cannot be sensed. They said it was just a story." "Maybe I'm the story," Elias said with a small, sad smile. Or maybe I'm just broken. Vetra didn't smile. You're not broken. But you're not normal, either. They stood in silence for a long moment. Then she asked, Have others noticed? He nodded. Animals avoid me. Tech glitches around me. People trust me, but also fear me. It's always been this way. Vetra stepped back slowly. She felt something strange growing inside her. It wasn't fear. It was curiosity. Maybe even comfort. And that scared her, because if her gift could be silenced, if a human could cancel out her strongest sense, then what else could he change in her? Something inside her whispered, this isn't the end of the mystery. It's only the start. Asterisk the experiment. Vetra could no longer ignore it. Her gift, the one thing that made her special, had no power near Elias, and that truth was beginning to drive her mad. Her mind was filled with questions she couldn't answer. Was Elias a hidden threat her instincts couldn't read? Or was he something else entirely, something her gift had never been trained to understand? She had to find out. Not through guessing, not through watching, through proof. Through risk. She decided to test him herself. In the outer deck of the station, there was a room meant for deep space survival drills. It was built to simulate emergency conditions, low oxygen, collapsing walls, sudden cold. No one went there without a reason. Vetra hacked the schedule, removed all entries, and set the timer. Then she asked Elias to join her for a training evaluation. He didn't ask why. He simply followed. Inside, she sealed the door. The lights dimmed. The air thinned. The temperature dropped slowly. The walls began to shake from the artificial tremors. The simulation had begun. It was dangerous. Not life-ending, but enough to test any warrior's instinct. Her eyes should have glowed the moment the countdown started, but they didn't. She stood in silence, surrounded by sirens and red lights. Her lungs tightened. Her feet shifted as the ground vibrated. She looked at Elias, calm, focused, not afraid, not angry, just still. You planned this, he said. Yes, she replied. He nodded. To see if you'd glow? To see if I was wrong about you. She stepped closer. The air was almost freezing now. Her breath came out in small white clouds. Her body trembled, but not from fear. From pressure. But her eyes remained dark. You should be glowing right now, she whispered. I know, he said, but you're not. She stared at him like she'd never seen him before. Why don't you make me afraid? Maybe because I'm not a danger, he said. But this room is, she argued. Yes, and still your gift stays quiet. There was a silence so deep it felt like the world had paused. Then Elias said something strange. Maybe your gift isn't warning you about danger anymore. Maybe it's learning to trust. Vetra didn't answer. She couldn't. Her brain was still trying to process what he said. The room returned to normal. Lights flicked on. Air flowed in. Warmth returned. She stood still. Her eyes, the ones that had always burned with warning, had done nothing. No glow. No spark. She left the room in silence. That night, Elias found her on the lower deck near the water tanks. She was sitting alone, her back to the wall, knees pulled to her chest. I've never felt that way before, she said softly. Which way? Safe, even when I shouldn't be. Elias sat beside her. That scares you? Yes, she admitted. Because I don't understand it. He took a deep breath. I need to show you something. From his pocket, he pulled out a small folded piece of ancient paper. It was a page from a history file, old and faded. On it was a drawing of a girl with glowing blue eyes. And beside her, a man with no name, no face, but with strange energy circling him. The title was simple, The One She Cannot See. Vetra's hand shook as she held it. This story, she whispered. I've heard it. They said the girl lost her power near him. They said he was the only one she couldn't warn about. Elias looked at her calmly. Maybe that's us. She closed her eyes. Everything was spinning in her head. The fear, the silence, the strange comfort. Elias was a question no one had ever asked before, and she was the only one who could find the answer. But as she looked into his calm, steady face, she knew something else. This mystery wasn't just about her gift. It was about her heart. And that was even harder to control. Asterisk. The spark between them. Vetra was trained to detect danger, to sense threats before they struck. But nothing had prepared her for what she was starting to feel now. This wasn't fear. It wasn't instinct. It was something else, something strange, something soft. It crept into her thoughts when she looked at Elias. Not because of who he was, but because of what she wasn't when she stood beside him. She wasn't a weapon. She wasn't a sensor. She wasn't the glowing-eyed tool her people made her. Near him she was just Vetra, and that was terrifying in a way no enemy had ever made her feel. It began with the dreams. In her sleep, she no longer saw the usual flashes of danger-burning skies, falling ships, screaming warnings. Now she saw blue light turning to white, fire that didn't burn, her own eyes glowing not in fear but in peace. She woke up each time sweating and confused. What was happening to her? Meanwhile, whispers spread around the base. Some of her squad mates noticed how she had changed, how she no longer reacted to sudden alerts the same way, how she was often missing during off hours. And always, the same name came up. Elias. One morning, her commander called her in. You're becoming distracted, he said. You've been assigned to sense threats, not form connections. Vetra remained silent. The commander paused. He's making you soft. She didn't respond. She didn't trust her voice. You must remember your role, he said. Firmly. Stay away from him. But how could she? Elias was the only one who didn't see her as a warning system. He listened when she spoke. He never asked her to prove herself. And more than that, her body, her instincts, her very gift behaved differently around him. She couldn't walk away without knowing why. Later that day, Elias approached her with news. He had found something buried in the archives of the station, a file that hadn't been accessed in over 50 years. It was a map, but not of a place, of an experiment. They went to a secure zone deep beneath the base, far below the public levels. There, the old servers still held data too sensitive to delete. The records were broken, but enough remained to understand. Long ago, before the alliance between humans and aliens began, a secret team had tried something risky. They wanted to stop war not with weapons, but with DNA. They took human embryos and mixed them with trace alien code, specifically with genes from species that sense danger through energy. Elias was part of that project. But what they didn't expect was this. Instead of becoming more dangerous, the result was the opposite. The child Elias grew up impossible to sense. He gave off no warning signs, no signals, no threat. He was invisible to fear. The experiment was labeled a failure. The scientists disappeared. And Elias was left behind with no memory of what he truly was. Vetra sat in silence as the truth settled in. I wasn't meant to be a weapon, Elias said. I was meant to stop people from becoming weapons. Vetra looked at him, her chest heavy. And I was trained to find threats. But now, next to you, I feel peace. And I don't know how to live with that. For a moment, there was nothing but silence between them. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was calm, deep, honest. Then Elias asked, Do you want to leave all this behind? What do you mean? I want to see the place where your people keep the legends. I want to know if you and I, if this thing between us was ever meant to happen, Vetra hesitated. That place was forbidden, old ruins. Sacred, hidden in the wildlands of her homeworld. Only elders went there. Only warriors after death or near it, but maybe they'd find the final answer. There, so she nodded slowly. Yes, she would go. And Elias would go with her, not as a threat, not as a danger, but as something far more powerful, a mystery she was no longer afraid to touch. The hidden, truthy old ruins didn't appear on any modern map. Vetra had only heard of them in quiet whisper stories told by dying warriors, half believed. Dreams passed down through bloodlines. Her tribe called it the Hollow of Echoes, a place where the past still breathed and where secrets, once buried, came back to life. No outsider had ever been allowed to step foot there. But now she was, bringing Elias, a human, a living mystery. The one person her body couldn't sense as danger. They landed far from the sacred ground to avoid being tracked. The air was thick with silence. The sky above was heavy with gray clouds, and even the wind seemed afraid to speak. Vetra led the way, but even she was unsure of the exact path. She had seen it only once as a child, from a distance. But her instincts tugged her forward. Strangely, Elias's presence made her feel closer to the truth, not farther. As they climbed the broken stone steps carved into the mountainside, Vetra noticed something strange. The symbols on the rocks began to glow faintly, not blue, but soft white. Elias touched one, and it pulsed beneath his hand. Vetra's breath caught. These stones responded to him, just like her instincts had, just like her eyes had refused to. The place did not reject him, it welcomed him. Inside the hollow, they found a dark chamber filled with carvings older than her species' recorded history. One showed a girl with glowing blue eyes holding hands with a being wrapped in light. Another showed stars falling, a war ending, and silence covering the land. At the center was a message, barely legible but still clear in meaning. When the light stops warning, the heart begins knowing. Vetra touched the words. They pulsed under her fingers. This is about us, she whispered. Elias remained quiet, but his eyes scanned every wall, absorbing everything. In the deepest part of the chamber, they found what looked like a throne made of glass. Floating above it was a small orb of crystal light. Elias stepped forward. The orb lit up, brighter than anything they'd seen so far. Then a voice old, layered with echo spoke in a language Vetra hadn't heard in generations. But she understood every word. He is the silence in the storm. She is the fire that once warned. Together, they are not danger, they are change. The voice faded, the orb dimmed, and everything was quiet. Vetra turned to Elias. You were never meant to be a weapon. He looked at her. Neither were you. Her eyes were wide. Our people fear what they can't control. That's why they trained me. That's why they'll come for us now. As if answering her fears, her communicator buzzed. A message blinked on the screen. Return immediately. The human is now classified as a threat. Orders: contain or eliminate. Her heart sank. She looked at Elias. They know. He nodded. It was only a matter of time. What do we do now? She asked, her voice low. We show them the truth, he said, even if they don't want to see it. But Vetra knew it wouldn't be that simple. Her people didn't listen to truth. They followed fear. They followed the glow in her eyes. And right now, her eyes weren't glowing. That would make them think she had failed. Or were switched sides. Still, something in her had changed. Not just her instincts, her purpose. They weren't just running from the past now. They were carrying the future. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of what came next out the betrayal. They didn't even make it halfway. Back to the shuttle. Vetra had known the risk the moment she stepped into the hollow of echoes. With Elias, her people did not forgive disobedience. And they especially didn't forgive silence, especially from someone like her, someone born to be their first line of defense. When her eyes stopped glowing around Elias, they didn't see it as a miracle. They saw it as failure. And failure, in her world, was unforgivable. The ambush came without warning. Not because it was invisible, because Elias was nearby. Her eyes didn't light up. Her instincts stayed quiet. And when the stun pulse hit her from behind, all she saw was Elias shouting her name before everything went black. When she woke up, she was no longer in the forest. She was strapped to a chair in a cold, gray interrogation room. Her wrists were bound, not with rope, but with honor threads, the kind used on traitors. Her own squad leader stepped into the light, face unreadable. "You brought a human into sacred territory," he said. "He's not just a human," she replied through clenched teeth. "He's something different. Something we were meant to find. We didn't need to find him. We needed you to warn us about him, and you failed." Vetra's voice cracked. "My eyes didn't glow because he wasn't a threat, or because he turned you blind." Before she could speak again, another screen lit up. Footage of Elias played fighting, running, vanishing into shadows. He had escaped the ambush, injured but alive. And now he was out there, alone, hunted. They were using her as bait. They didn't understand that Elias didn't run from fear. He ran to protect. He wouldn't abandon her, but she was wrong. Elias didn't return. Not that day, not the next, not even after she was moved to a higher security chamber. She waited for a sign, a message, anything. But there was only silence. Her people began to test her. They placed her near captured prisoners, criminals, wild beasts. Her eyes still glowed in all those moments, but not as bright, not as sharp. She was told it meant her ability was fading. That contact with the human had damaged her. They threatened to take her gift away permanently, strip her title, erase her from the warrior records. She didn't care. Not anymore. The only thing she wanted was to see Elias again, to ask him why he left, why he didn't come back. Then one night, as the cell lights dimmed and her body finally relaxed from exhaustion, a sound came, not a shout, not footsteps, a whisper, a transmission. Low, faint, hidden and static. "Don't cry, I'm not gone." Her heart stopped. "I had to disappear, for your sake. But I'm coming back. I promised you the truth, and I'm not done." Her hands shook. He was alive. And he hadn't abandoned her. He had become the very thing her people feared most to silence. Change. When they couldn't stop, when they couldn't sense. And soon, they would see what that really meant. Asterisk the final glow. The prison walls couldn't hold her much longer, not because they were weak, but because Vetra had already broken through something greater, her own fear. Her people thought they had silenced her, caged her, stripped her of purpose. But they had only sharpened her resolve. Because now she didn't serve warnings, she served truth. And Elias was the proof. The day of her cleansing arrived. That's what they called it, the ceremony to erase her title, remove her gift, and cast her from the warrior code. The chamber was filled with leaders, elders, watchers. Her eyes didn't glow as she was brought forward, and they all saw it as confirmation. "Her gift is broken," they whispered. "She is no longer one of us." But just as the sentence was about to be declared, the sky cracked. An explosion rocked the eastern tower. Lights blinked out. Alarm screamed. For the first time in weeks, Vetra saw panic on the faces of those who once judged her. Elias had returned, but not as a shadow. This time, he came with others hidden like him, people who glowed with peace instead of fear. The forgotten children of the ancient experiment. They stepped through walls, past sensors without a sound, walked into secured chambers as if nothing could stop them. Because nothing could. Elias reached her in seconds. His hand touched hers. The restraints melted. Off. The elders shouted. Security raised weapons. Still Vetra's eyes didn't glow. Instead, they changed. The blue shifted. White. Bright, shimmering, pure. The entire hall went silent. Not in fear. In awe. Vetra turned slowly, her white glowing eyes sweeping across the room. This is not danger, she said. This is the end of fear. Her people had always believed that glowing blue meant survival. That danger could only be met with weapons, warnings, and warriors. But now they saw a different light, not blue like before, but white, soft, powerful, uncheckable. It didn't scream. It didn't shout. It simply stood. Elias stepped beside her. They can't sense us because we're not here to harm. Vetra nodded. We're here to change what harm means. Some resisted. Some still raised weapons. But then something unexpected happened. One of the elders, a woman with decades of battle behind her, dropped her blade. And she bowed, not in defeat, but in surrender to understanding. Others followed. In that moment, Vetra realized her gift had never been meant to warn against danger. It was meant to guide her toward truth. She looked at Elias. You were never my enemy, she said softly. You were the reason my eyes were created. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a tool or a censor or a protector. She felt whole. She felt seen. As Elias took her hand, the white glow spread through the room, not blinding, not burning, but healing. And everyone who saw it knew a new chapter had begun, one not built on fear, but on light.